All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. I am Melanie Thomas, the tribe leader for the Black EXP Network, alongside Ms. Rachel Allen, our education tribe leader. Thank you for joining us for Beyond the Noise, our webinar that's to deal with the whole NAR lawsuit situation and the questions that you guys have. So right at the start, we have a little bit of legal intrigue, just to indicate the seriousness of this situation. So one of our guest speakers was supposed to be Jamila Winsley, who is actually, I believe, sits on the board of NAR and is involved with the Houston Association of Realtors, and is it also Texas Association of Realtors, Rachel, as well? Anyway, obviously, she's deeply involved with NAR on a internal level, and at the last hour, maybe about 30 minutes ago, informed us that I guess she was instructed that she could no longer participate in this panel because of legal concerns. So as much as that disappoints me, it actually makes me happy that our little Black EXP Network webinar got the attention of someone on high, and they decided that maybe this was not the right venue to publicly talk about this. So that being the case, that's not going to stop any show around here. We're going to continue to discuss what your guys' concerns are. So you can use the Q&A, put your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat, so that we can get them addressed and answered. Levi McDonald will be joining us shortly, as well as some other special guests who we are working on to get in to replace Ms. Winsley at the last hour here. But let's talk about it, guys. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, right? Rachel, everyone's talking about these lawsuits. What can you tell the folks? What is all this about from your perspective? You're down there. You're one of our 3-time icon agents here at EXP. What's going on in your world when it comes to this? What are you hearing, and what's your perspective on what's been going on?
Well, I will say that what I'm hearing, it's from all different places. There's a big concern because like you mentioned, we're trying to give truth through all the noise. We don't really know what it is just yet. We know that there's some lawsuits, and we're seeing it hit pretty heavy. So out here in Texas, very soon after the decisions and verdicts came down with the national level lawsuit against NAR, we're seeing similar copycat lawsuits against our local Houston Association of Realtors, Texas Association of Realtors, as well as some brokerages as well. So it can be concerning whenever you say the word lawsuit, legal. You think, oh my goodness, what does that mean? How much does this cost? How is this going to affect or impact? And then that's really what we want to have the conversation about today. As agents, what do we really have to know? We have so much to worry about, not just with all the market changes and shifts and things we have to do in our business. What is this other thing that we have to think about? But when it all comes down to it, I think it's a very important thing to consider and think about, especially when it comes to how we run our business and how we talk about what we do as real estate agents and how we show our value and the importance that we provide to our clientele.
Absolutely, because that essentially is what everyone is so concerned about, that the value that we bring, or we're being devalued, as that word, as especially if you're a buyer's agent specifically, because the lawsuit involved how buyers agents are paid. So what were one of the things that you got some questions, we had some questions beforehand. And by the way, folks, if you can throw into the chat who you are, where you're from, so we can know who's online with us here. And let me see, are you guys able to write in the chat, or I see if I have that turned on or turned off? I'll check on that. But yeah, is buyer's agency as we know it going to die? That's the question that everybody's concerned about. How are you going to be paid as a buyer's agent, as a listing agent, if you no longer have to offer a compensation to a buyer's agent? What does that look like? What does that look like for the consumer? What does that look like for a brokerage? Like what does that look like? So someone has a Q&A here. Let me see. Oh, chat's disabled. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to get that fixed. And yeah, if you could just talk about that a little bit, Rachel, in your business, I don't know how much percentage of buyers that you work with versus sellers. But what would you say is the biggest concern, legitimate concern that a buyer's agent should have right now?
I think so. One of the things that I see in my market when it comes down to, I coach and mentor agents as well. And this actually came up today in one of our conversations about, as we start to think about our business plans, we have to think about what are our unique selling propositions? What makes someone want to work with us? And as we kind of go through those questions, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm a real estate agent. I help clients to purchase properties, but what does that truly mean? What value do I actually provide? And oftentimes when you get into the conversation about a representation agreement, which here in Texas, we have we have very many promulgated forms. It's very clear and written out in our agency agreements. But what I've come to understand, especially in light of the lawsuits, is that that's not the case for every state. So when it comes down to disclosure and how we talk about with our clients, how we get paid, it has been, I know when I first came into the business around 2015, where I was seriously doing this as a real estate agent, we were often told, coached, and taught to say, hey, if I'm representing you as a buyer, you don't have to pay me. Like, basically, I will help you at no cost, right? I mean, how many of us raise your hand?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's free. My services are free. That's that word that people use when, we know that's not actually the case, right? So
it becomes problematic now because, if our clients think we work for free, like, what does that really say about the value that we're providing? We don't work for free. And many of us would not actually do the amount of work that we do if we weren't getting paid for it. The truth of the matter is that the way that we have been structured for so long is that the seller pays a listing broker a commission of the sale. And in that agreement, which is very clearly stated in our listing agreements, the listing broker agrees to pay a co-op broker, or if you're doing dual agency or intermediary, they agree to pay another party to represent the other side. And the reason it's structured this way is so that we can have a fair marketplace where both buyers and sellers' interests are both being taken into consideration. Because if we don't have that, if we don't have buyers having fair representation, then what happens?
Exactly.
Right?
To me, that's who's really going to lose out in this equation is buyers, especially maybe lower income buyers, people who probably are in most need of that representation. Because if a listing agent controls everything, who gets to see the property, who gets to show the property, there's no transparency there, and it leaves room for a lot of, unfortunately, let's just say it could be discrimination, could run rampant with no checks and balances if this is done in this way. We have a question from LaRonda here, as I'm still trying to figure out how to open the chat back up. But it says she's asking, how are we approaching this with sellers when it's brought up during the listing presentation? And I would say personally, in my experience, we're paying attention to this because we're realtors and it's in our face all the time. But the average person probably right now has no clue about any of this that's going on yet. I know that will change. But you may run across a savvy seller who's been watching the news and says, hey, I heard I don't have to pay another agent. Why do I have to pay you whatever because you have to share it with somebody? I don't want to participate in that. What would you say would be your response to that?
So, it's just, and also, Melanie, I want to let you know that
Levi, I'm looking out for him if he comes in as a participant.
But he's saying he doesn't have the link, so I don't know if you could shoot that to him real quick.
Yeah, Monique sent it to him.
Okay,
so in there.
And I think we've just kind of came to this perfect storm. We just came off of this crazy market where, honestly, it didn't take much for a listing agent to sell out. Let's just be honest. You throw it up, the way technology is set up these days, it goes out everywhere. And the consumer has so much more access to information than they've ever had before. So it comes into question, like, what is the true value? Before I was even in the business, the way that you bought and sold real estate before the internet, you had to go to a brokerage office. You had to pull out these MLS books that were updated like once a month so you can even know what was available.
Right.
And so it does change the structure of what we do and how we do it. And we have to talk more about our value. So if you have sellers who are coming to you and saying, okay, I understand, I'm informed, I know what's going on. From what I understand now, I don't have to pay a buyer's agent. Why are you charging me, what you're charging me on the listing? If I know that I can get a buyer, like, why can't you just bring me a buyer without having to
Another
pay
agent involved.
for agent's
Right.
commission, right? And when you think about it as a listing agent, you kind of think to yourself like, why do I have to do that? And that's all based on what the market norms are. And I'm going to kind of take this to why I think it's important, because when you think about the market and how it works, you have first-time home buyers, right? You have people who don't even know that purchasing a home is an option or a thought. So the buyer's agent, especially those who specialize in first-time home buyers, that's part of their job, prospecting. Let me call people, let me interact with people, let me talk to people about what home buying is, what's the value of it. And so if we're knocking that part out of the equation, then I think you're going to see less buyers interested in purchasing. We're already seeing it with millennials now. It's not a high priority because it's not the same. The American dream is different than what it used to be 50 years ago. So I say all that to say is, to a listing agent, the way that things were structured, using a buyer's agent, having an agent who was already representing buyers, it helped as a marketing tool. Say, hey, as part of what I offer, in order to get more views on your property, I offer an incentive to agents who are representing buyers to come show your property, and we have those conversations so we can get your property sold. So I think, like, in asking that question, when it comes up, there is no standard. Let's just kind of talk about that. We always like, 6%, 7%, 5%. There is not that. And that's what the main issue came from to start. There is no standard. So now it's not necessarily the importance of saying, we have to offer this. Let's talk about the needs. Let's talk about the property. Let's talk about the context of what we're doing. So for me, when I have a seller that's saying like, I don't want to pay that, I'll say like, okay, well, we have an option where you don't, but what's going to happen is you're limiting the marketing budget that we have to get your home sold quickly. So that's how I would answer that question.
Okay, perfect. We have some folks that have joined us here to join in on the fun. So we got Miss Talisa Rose out of Dallas, Fort Worth area, Texas, North Texas, Fee Gentry, the founder of the Black EXP Network, and Levi McDonald, who hopefully will be on camera in a moment. So welcome, guys. If you want to open up, I've added you all as panelists, so you can chime in on this if you want to. Hey, Fee, how's it going? Claudienne Hibbert was just on here with us, and she dropped off because she actually said sellers have been asking about this now. So, Delisa, can you open up your mic if you can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thank you for jumping on and pitching in at the last hour with the issue that occurred here with our NAR representative. But talk about a little bit about NAR, like what is NAR for us as agents? A lot of people have been online speaking about, why NAR shouldn't exist anymore, and what our money is not well spent, and they're not representing us properly, and how could they lose this lawsuit? It's so terrible. You had a terrible defense, and look at what you have caused. And what's your take on that? I know you and I have talked about this, offline, about whether NAR is actually still useful to us as agents or not on a national level. But do you have some thoughts you want to share on that, since we don't have someone from NAR to speak for them right now? Not that you speak for them, but what your opinions might be on that.
And as you know, I strongly support the National Association of Realtors. as advocates for us. So I might be canceled for saying that. Because
No
a lot of people,
cancellation. We're
on
in a
your
safe
side.
space.
I'm
but
on your side.
National Association of Realtors is a nonprofit organization that we're members of. And in this industry, we have to be best, better, different. There are many different organizations out there. The Black EXP Network is an organization in itself, and it offers value, that we use. I think that many of the agents are maybe miseducated and therefore misrepresenting the commission structure and how it works. But in fact, the seller pays the listing agent, the listing broker, period. They don't pay the buyer's agent. We have to disclose if we're splitting money and giving money and things like that, because it weighs into how a buyer may look, at our property when we're listing it. But technically, they pay the listing broker. And there is no set standard. We can charge whatever. And to answer your question, if a listing agent or a seller says, hey, I don't want to pay the other agent, okay, you don't have to pay the other agent. You still pay me 6, 7, or 8%. And then what I do with that, I do with that. But the National Association of Realtors, I attend the Texas Association of Realtors events. I like to go to the national events. I like to go to the regional events. And for $500 to $1,000 a year, it's strongly worth it. I think there's a lot of benefits that the National Association of Realtors offers that many of the agents don't participate in and don't pay attention to. But if we weren't realtors, and we didn't have access to MLS, or everybody had access to MLS, what value would we have? So I strongly support it. I know they say don't say NAR, but National Association of Realtors. And I think that we, as realtors, should. I don't think that all realtors need to be required to join the association, but if we are, we do need to know the value and understand how beneficial it is to us and participate more, because ultimately right now they're protecting our industry, or trying. And how hard is that when you have the industry that you're protecting turning against us and not even realizing that it's the industry that they're trying to protect in our dollar?
Right. So
That's
you said you shouldn't be required. So isn't that part of the beef that a lot of agents have, is that why am I required to be part of this organization if I don't feel they're representing me properly, or, I don't really have, I can't, you said that.
So they're not required. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, doesn't require anybody to join. The brokers require it. And the National Association of Realtors, or the local MLS board, may say, hey, to a brokerage, all of your agents have to join or you get shut down. So if an agent joins an office that is associated with MLS or the brokerage or whatever the case may be, then they're required to. I don't agree with that part, but the agent has the option to say, well, I don't want to join ABC brokerage, or I don't want to join 123 brokerage. But then where are they going to get MLS from? So you can't be mad at an organization because it's the only organization that offers MLS. If you want to do it, join it. If you don't, then where are the competitors that have built another MLS? Zillow, maybe.
That part right there.
Part
One
right
thing
there.
you guys can, I think I finally enabled the chat. If somebody could test that out for me and throw a chat to everyone and let me see if that's working. Guys, let me know if it's still coming up as disabled. So go ahead, Rachel. I'll throw it back to you.
No, I think that's a really great point, Delisa. I think that's part of the chatter that's going on with everything. I've heard so many agents say that, thank goodness, that they don't have to be a part, from what I understand, RE/MAX and was it Home Partners of America? I believe they said that they're letting that be an option to their agents now. And And so, it's so many different aspects of different states, different types of, every MLS, every association has different rules in how they do everything. So it's hard to speak on it on a like a even playing field. But that would be my question, for the agents that don't see the value in being a part of an association, what is the expectation, or what did the disappointment, like when you say that in a National Association of Realtors did not represent agents well? Is there anyone on the panel that can speak to that, or what that feeling is?
I have so much to say on that.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm going to start from, let's go back for those of us who've been in the business a long time. So it started back in 2004 when the National Association of Realtors sold all of our data to Zillow, or actually gave away in exchange for a lot of money. So it started with that piece right there. So what it forced was for us to give up that information, and then now Zillow has become a branded juggernaut in the industry. So when we talk about people having access to the MLS, our customers and clients are smarter than us half the time, because they can go to Zillow and see just as much access to information. So I don't agree that we should be forced, or agents should be forced, to join the National Association of Realtors and pay MLS dues and fees when the information is almost public information almost. I mean, there's, in some instances and cases, there is some, that Zillow doesn't have, obviously, the data in real time, and they don't have access to the back end sides of it. However, builders belong to it. You're making lenders belong to the National Association of Realtors, and that's to the tune of $840 million a year. That's what the issue is. So I don't see $840 million a year worth of value. I see Super Bowl commercials, and this is the things that people have said. Super Bowl commercials, bowl games, we've seen those pieces, but not standing up for people who have been for affordable housing, when they've had the opportunity to stand up for affordable housing, not for programs that provide down payment assistance programs on a national level. That's, or big amounts of it. So that's where people have the issue. So that's where I start with that. Where else do you want me to go with it?
I think when you think about, of course, it's always going to be some levels of politics involved. But, one of the things that I have questions about with National Association of Realtors, if we don't have National Association of Realtors, what do we do? Because I know there's a variety of things, especially from being able to get involved with lobbying on our behalf. What are the other options out there if we don't have National Association of Realtors? Because essentially that's what's coming up right now. We have concerns. We're seeing all this going on. One of the questions that was pre-sent is this going to affect the dues that we pay to the Association of Realtors, whether the local levels or national? Does anybody have any insight on that?
Let me just say one thing before we continue, that I should have probably said at the start, that the views expressed here on this call are those of us as individual agents and independent contractors of eXp Realty, and maybe, well, I guess all of us here now are in eXp now that the other lady didn't show up. But so we do not speak for, although I'm wearing a hat that says eXp World Holdings, I do not represent them in any way, shape, or form, nor does anyone else on this panel. So the opinions expressed are their own and their own only. So there you go. Let's not get any more lawyers involved. All right.
Let me say this: independent contractors and agents across the country, not of any one organization or real estate brokerage.
There you go. Thank you for cleaning that up for me, Delisa. So Levi, join us. What say you on all of this as you join us now?
Hello, all my beautiful people. Good to see you all. Sorry I'm on a little late tonight. What was the last question?
Well, first tell everybody who you are, because you weren't on at the start, and we might not have only family here. We might have some guests on us, so let them know who you are and where you're from.
Hello, everyone. My name is Levi McDonald. I am an eXp agent. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been licensed since 2006. I've been a full-time real estate agent since 2014, and I've been with eXp Realty as a team leader since 2018. So I love it here. I love this group. I love our people. I love these discussions. I like the fact that we can be here and be open and be safe, and just glad to be here.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. So yeah, what is your take on this whole situation as a leader of a large team and organization?
My take may be a little different than a lot of other people's takes. I tend not to be bothered by the headlines. I tend not to get caught up in the news. I tend not to be afraid of what may happen. You know, when you're talking about ongoing litigation, that's what it is. It's ongoing litigation. So regardless of what we say here tonight, regardless of what was said last week, until it's finalized, then we won't know anything. So the only thing that we should all be doing is focusing on what we do every day. Like we should be focusing on doing a better job for our clients, focusing on helping them solve their problems, focusing on trying to figure out what those problems are and putting all of our energies towards that. So that's kind of like my take on it. Of course, there are a lot of different scenarios. We can go down a lot of different paths, but overall, that's my take on it.
So I want to kind of expound on that a little bit, because from what I understand, you have a program, you teach class, you talk about it, how to create a buyer client VIP experience. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know that there's a lot that goes into it, but you know, so part of the things that I think have been some of the challenges is, as buyer's agents selling your value. What does that mean? And how do you do that? How do you teach your team members how to do that?
Yep. So that was probably one of the biggest blessings that I had. I was able to be a part of some coaching, and it was kind of instilled in me early on, especially when I started the team, to learn how to articulate my value and charge or state what your fee was, and make that clear and make that transparent to your buyer. So what we would do, what we do is, you know, and it's not all the time, because we never let commission stand in the way of a transaction. At the end of the day, it's all about the client closing on their home. So we've actually been in situations where I've slashed my commission. I've had 2 transactions where I didn't make a dime, because I gave away all my commission dollars for that deal to happen, because, you know, things happen. We've all been in those situations, things happen. But I would not have been able to do that if I did not have this strategy implemented. And what we do is, about 80% of the time with the buyers that we work with, we get anywhere between 3.5% to 4% commission. And then we also get a $6.95 to $9.99 transaction fee. So the way that we do that is we start off with the client, not at the front door. We start off with a buyer's presentation. And that presentation that we have is simply a conversation. And a lot of people ask me, can I get it? Can I get the template? Can I get it's really very, very simple. It's really just you listing out the things that you do for your client, and you know what you do for your client, and you list those things out. So and you know, we have to get people to sign the buyer broker agreements. Another honest story is that I never even got my clients to do that prior to it being a part of the paperwork that we needed to get turned in. But so we have the buyer broker agreement, and then we also have this document that we use. It's called the Elite VIP Buyer Agreement. And that agreement does not take place of the buyer broker agreement. As a matter of fact, that document has no legal bearing at all. It doesn't go to the brokers. It doesn't get filed. But what it does is it outlines every single thing that we're going to do for that client, line by line, no matter how large or how small it is. So for an example, one of the line items on there says, I'm going to make sure that you are able to get a private showing on any property that you want to see. We all do that, right? But how many times do we go into how important that is? Like, how many times do we have a 1 to 2 minute conversation or statement that we make to let the buyer know how important it is for them to be able to go and see a house without somebody else waiting on them to come out. You know, so what we do, we go is line by line by line by line. It's 12 to 15 things on there. Everything from working with our vendors to working with our lenders to the different programs that they may have to our guarantees, our word-free guarantees. We buy our clients a home warranty. We can't negotiate it. So we just put all that stuff in there. And then at the end of it, we let them know, this is what we get paid. This is our fee. This is a commission. All right. We're going to get the seller to pay as much of it as we can. Anything that we can't get from the seller to pay, then it's going to roll over into your closing costs. Mr. Buyer, remember when I told you what closing costs were? Closing costs are first year's taxes, first year's insurance, this, that, realtor's fees, attorney's fees. I call it the junk fees. And it's very conversational, right? And we say anything that we can't get the seller to take care of, the difference is rolled over into the closing costs. But Mr. Seller, you're in the market, right? Mr. Buyer, we're in the market right now where we're actually doing a better job getting closing costs paid. So your seller may very well take care of all of this. But in the event of, this is how it's set up. I can only speculate or imagine why this whole thing even came up. And it's probably because somebody felt like they got screwed. And it's because whoever felt that way did not understand. There was no transparency. Somebody misunderstood. So our job is to make sure that we are doing the best for our clients. To number one, let them know that we can solve their problems. Number two, show them how we can do that, articulate it, and then if they don't get it, go back again, right? I say three things. And one of the things is something I just learned from one of my other coaches. He said, money changes hands when problems are solved, right? Money changes hands when problems are solved. Number one. Number two, value unarticulated is value unappreciated. All right. And then number three, money is only an issue in the absence of value. So we know that money changes hands when problems are solved. We got to solve the problems, period. And let them know how we do it. Articulate it. If we articulate it, we come across clear, it's going to be understood. If they don't understand it, then we got to do a better job of letting them see the value. So it's all about just doing that. It's all about being transparent and not hitting the brakes right now. Like, this is not the time to hit the brakes. This is the time to go all gas. And right now, ain't nothing changed. Nothing has changed. We asking all these questions about what if, how is it going to be, and nothing has changed. But everybody's like, stop. It's time to hit the gas and go. And when changes happen, if they happen, whatever happens, like, for me, like, I truly believe that this company is built to survive anything. EXP and the platform that we have is built to survive anything. We're profitable, no debt, we can move, we're agile. The leadership, this whole company has always been agent-centric. If we just continue to focus on the client, I believe we're in good hands, regardless if it's a NAR, if it's an MLS, who cares? Really. Like, please, man, do not get caught up in the hype. I understand that it is, I'm not saying it's not important, because it is, because we will all be affected some kind of way. But it's not about what happens, it's about how you deal with it.
So mindset, like maybe how you approach anything that's a problem. You talked a lot about essentially setting expectations, right? And could be for any of our panelists. What are some actionable items that agents can do right now? And this isn't necessarily in light of lawsuits, but probably just in general in business. What would you say would be for new agents or agents who have been in the business for a while, they're seeing a shift and need to do something different, what would you suggest as some things that they could focus on right now to prepare for next year?
I think that every agent needs to call 25 to 30 lenders and interview those lenders and find out what programs they have to make it better for buyers. What down payment assistance programs are out there? What loan programs are out there? What are you all doing on the lending side to be more agile? Like, what are you all doing to make this a better experience for the buyer, right? I feel like another thing that agents should do is look for the sellers. Like, it don't matter what market we in. Somebody got to sell, somebody want to sell, somebody has to sell. Look for those sellers, right? I would recommend being in the right rooms, getting in the right rooms around people who are forward thinking, getting in the right rooms around people who are sharing strategies. Whether if you want to get more listings, get around listers, right? Listing agents. If you want to get more buyers, get around people that are looking for buyers. If you want to get around some mindset stuff, there are people around that are networking and masterminding just specifically on mindset. But overall, diversify yourself, like diversify your business. If you're only working with buyers, you need to mix it up. You know, if with anything, like we don't want to just have one path. Mix it up so that you can be agile, you can be diversified. If one thing is shut down, then you can go another way. I had something else on the tip of my tongue and I just lost it. But if it comes back, I'll let y'all know. But you just gotta just be in it. You know what I'm saying? Build. But at the end of the day, get in the right groups, get in the right rooms, trust your leadership. If you notice that everybody you're talking to is talking about the negative sides of this case, then you automatically need to find you somebody else to hang out with. Period.
I agree. And Levi, we could always drop the mic after he talks, for real, for real. So happy to be part of the family. But there's a one thing they said earlier, and it was keep doing business. And I agree 100% to keep doing business. But I think that realtors really miss out the lack of knowledge, you know? So sometimes because we don't understand what's going on, things slip through and then they come back and bite us. Us selling in our information to Zillow. There were realtors who were like, yo, I need to be on Zillow. And if I'm not on Zillow, my seller's not happy, you know? So we promoted and sometimes backed, Zillow getting our information. And it came back to bite us, and ruined our industry in a way. So even though, yes, 100% right, nothing has changed, it is changing. And it's very imperative for us as real estate professionals, to be mindful and aware and read the fine lines and know how to protect ourselves instead of just allowing the people at the top to do what they do. And then we end up being affected by it. As far as going into 2024, real estate is one of those things where it's so broad and everybody has a tip on what to do, and how to be successful. But it doesn't always work for everybody, whether different people have different personalities, different goals. Some people have kids, some people don't. Some people live in, low to moderate income areas. Some people deal with luxury. Some people have different networks. Everything is different. This time of year, I would suggest that people really find out what it is that they want, in life, what it is that they want in real estate, what their goals are, what their strengths, their weaknesses are. Really go back to the foundation, and begin to understand that this is just not something you wake up and do, but to really begin to build your business and respect the license as what it is. You have doctors that do this, that are licensed, attorneys that are licensed, financial advisors that are licensed, and they study their craft. They have their coaches, they partner with the right people, but all of them know exactly what their business is. And there's many people in real estate where we don't know our elevator pitch, we don't know our budget, we don't know how many people are in our database, we don't have a database in one location, we don't know the password to the CRM, we never did a business plan. You know,
Are y'all writing these things down so that you can answer yes or no to these questions? You don't take note.
Yeah, our schedule. We don't have a calendar. We don't have templates as far as the presentation, the buyer's presentation, the listing presentation. And many of us can't say, why would somebody work with you? You know, what do you have to offer? What courses do you need to take this year? And understand that we, I think, need to respect our business, you know, our lives, and go back to basics. If people have not created their business and their business plan and their life plan, they need to start there and then begin to figure out what books are you going to read to help it self-develop, and what areas do you need to self-develop in, because I'm a strong advocate of everybody is in their own way, you know. So how are you, look back the last 5 years, do an audit of the last 5 years, you know, what have you been telling yourself you're going to do that you're not going to do? What bad habits continue to show up over and over again? How are you standing in the way? You know, what's your emotional maturity level? You know, how are you handling clients? Why is it the same thing every different year? And therefore, what can you do? So I think people could be going into, I'm going to shut up after this, but going into a dark space in their room, or do a staycation, you know, at their favorite hotel, lock themselves in a room for 3 days, 4 days a week, and go into the lab and define, you know, yourself and your business, and then run it all the way through. When I say run it all the way through, put that plan together and say, okay, if this happens, you know, what will happen? You know, and figure out, okay, how do I need to change up and where do I need to change up to make all of this work?
Let me ask a question
100.
to all of you, to both of you. You brought up the Z word, Lisa, Zillow. Okay, so what does it look like? They're not going anywhere, I don't think, right? Is Zillow the enemy? Do we have an enemy? Should we consider them an enemy? Like, are they a threat to us? Do we need to, or is it something that is too far to roll back? Like, okay, who's chomping at the bit to
I want to address that. Can I address that,
please?
Yeah. Because the CEO of Zillow just at the last Inman Connect, or one of the last events, after the ruling that happened on October 31st, the CEO, Gregory, whatever his name is, said that Zillow understands that agents need to be in the business. It's kind of like Uber, right? Like Amazon has to have has to have drivers they can't do that last mile delivery. And that's what real estate professionals represent. There has to be one-on-one contacts to have those services, individualized services customers done. Now Zillow is going to be a lead generator. Because this direct to consumer, the race right now is the relationship with the consumer and who's first to that particular consumer or client or customer. So Zillow's position, I don't think Zillow's the enemy. I think, and they're showing it by they're partnering with all these Zillow they're partnering with a lot of people in our industry, top professionals, as is Place, like Ben Kinney did Place, right? So we're watching that. So I don't know if they're the enemy. I think that they are an option for people to partner with if they choose to do so. But you can do the exact same thing, but just at a smaller level, locally. So that's kind of my position, is that Zillow has made it clear that they do not want to be our enemy. And that they believe that agents agree, that agents should be part of be in the transaction.
And I'll speak to that a little bit. I mean, we saw what happened in Zillow when they became an iBuyer. They decided they were going to buy up all these houses, and then realized it did not go so well. And the reason is because real estate is a local business. Like, if you don't understand the nuances of the local markets, you're not going to be successful. So it does take agents who know that specific knowledge, who have the relationships, who have the resources. That's key in the business. And so back to just what Delisa was saying is, what are you doing? And Levi, what are you doing in your business? When Levi said, you need to go sit down with lenders, you're like, oh, why? Like, because lenders will tell you what options, what solutions you can provide to your clients. That's so very important.
Rachel, I want to say something on that Zillow thing. I think one thing that's really important, not even to consider anything an enemy, but to always just consider, how do we leverage this and use it to our advantage? And Zillow has a lot of things to offer, from whether it's the leads, the information that, hey, this is why you need us, because it's not accurate. It's not in real time. This is all the things that it can't do. Zillow's pulling information from us, et cetera, et cetera. So I think with everything, just having that mindset of, how can I how can I make lemonade? How can I use this to my advantage? And how can I use this to leverage and build, the business, not just with Zillow, but with any of the things, the obstacles that show up.
Right. And just going back to kind of like, if you look at Zillow, they're buying up lots of things. So was it centralized showings? Everybody ran off with centralized showings when that happened. Now
Follow-up boss.
Everybody's like, oh, why would you do that? And it's one of those things, like you said, you have to understand they're here. They're going to be here, not going anywhere. So you have to decide, is it going to be like, can you work with it? Are they here to take our job as a real estate agent? That's not it. It's like, if they have my client's contact information, I don't care. It's public information. It's there. Like, I could go find my client's information, but they're not going to call my client. The thing that's important and what we really need to focus on, it's relationships. It's a relationship-based business. So, if I have a database, I have to ask myself, if my client decides not to work with me, what was it that I didn't provide them that somebody else did? And so it goes back to like just really being able to understand your value proposition, what you do, how you do it. And, it's almost embarrassing to say, I've been in this business for 13 years, like 8, like seriously. And this year is the first year I've built a solid business, like a 20-page business plan, because I recognize I have to do things a little bit differently if I want to grow, if I want to scale. So, I know this is a poll question. How do you feel about your business in 2024? I'm excited to see that, the polls are coming in and most people are confident, which is a great sign. But I also want to ask those same people, do you have your business plan? Are you planning to do it? Do you plan to have it before January hits? Because in all reality, if it's not done now, you should start the implementation of the plan now so you can start receiving the business from January. So
I love, Levi, what you said. I think we should change the slogan or make a slogan for EXP or Black EXP or whoever, just ain't nothing changed, right? Because everything that you guys are saying is what you could have said 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and it would still be the same. The difference is, I know, Fee, you've said this before, strong markets make weak agents, right? And so we're coming out of a period where you didn't have to know how to do anything to make money necessarily. You didn't have to try that hard. You didn't have to prospect that much. You didn't have to do much to get multiple offers on your property or to find a buyer who could get a mortgage because it was 3% or whatever. It's not that hard to qualify at that point. And so people lost the skills and the abilities or the desire to work hard. And the only difference now is that, okay, you got to go back to the basics. Then the basics haven't changed. Would you all agree? They're still going to be the same. The platforms we use might be different. The competitors might look different, but it's still relationships, talking to people face to face, human beings with other human beings, right? And so in that respect, you're right. Ain't nothing changed except our viewpoint about it. Would you guys agree?
100%.
Yep.
And
I think it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, I think it's quite natural that we all got a little relaxed. If you say you didn't get a little relaxed, you're probably telling a white lie just a little bit. But I like one of the first books that I ever read, outside of it being a school assignment, was Who Moved My Cheese, and that's a very small book. We all know about it. That book has been so relevant in life so many times over and over and over again. And here it is right here again now. So just it's a good thing. Like hard times are good because it forces, and I'm just repeating what you just said, but it forces us to go in and do business a little bit different. It forces us to get up, look at that same situation and see another side of it. And it's going to be good for all of us. Will there be people leaving the industry? I believe so. Unfortunately, I believe so because it's already happening. But at the same time, that creates opportunity for us. That creates more opportunities for us to have more connections and for us to build more relationships. So everybody on here probably read that book. If you haven't read Who Moved My Cheese, go read it. It's a real small book, and you'll find it very, very valuable, I think.
Oh, it's a great book and very relevant for now. I was just going to say earlier, HGTV kind of ruined us because there's so many agents that get in the business because it just looks so glamorous. It's so easy and you make so much. When you look at that commission, you're like, oh, you saw, I could, our clients will say, this was an easy process. I could get paid to do this, but the reason it was an easy process is because it took time to get experience, to get the knowledge behind everything. And so when agents get into the business and they don't see that, oh, somebody's just going to want to start working with me, it's a business. You have to work it like you are a business owner, because you could be a real estate agent, which is one thing. But if you're a real estate agent, essentially you're still an employee until you start putting systems in place, having a plan to become an actual business owner so that you can leverage and grow.
Rachel, the one I love what you just said just now about that, because I was actually coming off the mic to just say real estate is I think one of the biggest things that we do wrong is think of this as we're just realtors. Forgive me for stuttering. I'm on my fourth closing right now, but today. But say hi, Father. Anyway, hey. But yes. Long story short, we consider ourselves realtors, just representing our clients, and we focus on just being a service-based industry where we could get into products, we can get into affiliations with title companies, lenders, home warranty companies, security companies, every home service. Fee and I were talking earlier, and she was saying there's over 40 other checks are cut. And I think when I counted, it was closer to 100, between underwriters and, examiners and everybody else that, from a real estate transaction, and we only get paid once. And we're just looking at ourselves as the realtor with the fiduciary responsibility to represent the client, when we're not looking at ourselves as our own best client, the investor, the partner, marketing, the teacher, online courses, online products, consulting, so many different other things. And a commission is not the only way that we could get paid, but I think we do ourselves a disservice by just focusing on ourselves as a realtor versus an entrepreneur, an investor, a business owner. So, yes.
I want to ask a question about, Rachel, you talked about people, the perception of HGTV, you make all this money. So let's talk about that a little bit, because this could come into play. Part of this whole perception of what realtors are is that we make too much money somehow. They don't say that about lawyers or whatever, that take 33 1/3% of any settlement that you get. And to me, that's a fixed amount. I don't know why that doesn't come up for, someone to review. Because if that's not a version of a fixed commission, try to find an attorney who will charge less than that. So I don't know if they all put out a memo, but that's how they operate. And nobody has a problem with that. But how would you respond to people who say, oh my goodness, you made $10,000 on this sale, and I just don't see why you should be making all that money. How do you defend yourself against that? Or how do you justify what you make, or without feeling like you have to apologize for making money when they don't question they don't question their lawyer, they don't question their doctor, their accountant, their hairstylist, and well, maybe some people question the hairstylist, but how do you respond to that? This notion that somehow everybody has an opinion on what we make and what we're worth.
I think if somebody has to ask themselves that, then I didn't do my job. My goal is that they leave the transaction feeling like it was easy. That's the whole purpose. If they feel like it was hard, then I didn't do my job very well. I mean, yeah, and there's always going to be things that like come into play, but a big part of being a real estate agent is not just opening doors and showing houses. It's about having the emotional intelligence to be able to keep it calm when the fire is blazing around you, being able to negotiate deals. We've seen negotiations look very different these last few years because it wasn't necessarily how do you get the best price, it's how do you get the house. And so being able to, navigate all of that, having the information, the experience, the access to the resources. So, I mean, I really honestly, if somebody asked me that, it's like, hey, I'm probably not the agent for you if you have to like question my value. But I don't get that very often because I am able to articulate what I do for clients.
Anybody else want to
I
speak?
got that question before.
What was your response?
My answer was because you're worth it. I made X amount of dollars on that transaction because you're worth it. I can't remember exactly what that price point was, but let's just say, for an example, it was 500. I made that commission on getting you that $500,000 house because you don't want a $100,000 agent selling you that $500,000 house. You don't want a $20,000 agent selling you your $200,000 house. So you're worth it. You are worth every single dollar that I made on that transaction. And I didn't take it no deeper than that because I think my response caught them off guard, and then we started laughing at it. So whatever problem, whatever issues they had initially, they went away when I said that.
I'll speak to that too. For me, especially because I specialize in the new home construction when I was actively selling, and it was always I go in the presentation and I sit if I'm doing a listing presentation or even on the buyer side a buyer presentation. I go to their table with a piece of fruit or just get simple. Just you want to dumb it down and make them show that you're providing so much value that they feel like your offer is so strong that they feel stupid, like an Alex Ramosi kind of thing. They feel stupid for not taking you up on the offer. Like, oh man, you're doing all this. And then I show them like, so I can take a couple pins, right? Like, pins or fruit. And I'm like, this happens and, this person gets paid and this person gets paid and this person gets paid. Oh, and the IRS gets paid. And I pay this person, and then you go and I'm doing, and then you show them the 90 things that you're doing as a listing agent, or you show them the 80 something listing things that you're doing as a buyer's agent, and then they feel really small when they even think about asking you about the value that you provide for them. And I always, if I have an apple or a fruit, I'll leave a grape, and I said, I just get this little grape or like whatever fruit that I have. That's the one grape that I get for representing you and your interests. Because I have a fiduciary, legal, and ethical responsibility to represent you in your interests. And they kind of go, okay. So that's how you defend it.
We do have a couple of questions, and we're getting pretty close to the end. So Terrence Clark asked, what was the original reason why you got into real estate? Was it to sell houses, or was there something else driving the initial interest? Anyone want to answer that? You love showing houses.
No, I'll tell y'all, I fell into real estate. Like my mom had a bad experience with somebody building her house. And I honestly, when I got into real estate, I didn't know the difference between a lockbox and a listing. It was plan F for me. I had no desire, but the reason I got into it was because I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, about 90% of millionaires who are 90% of millionaires are in the real estate industry or own real estate. I don't know how I got that mixed up with selling it, but that's how I initially got into the real estate game. So that's how I got into it.
Same, honestly, almost the exact same. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I wanted to invest in real estate. And I thought that, getting my license would give me access to the MLS so I could find more deals. And I did that to start, and I was an agent part-time, but then I moved to full-time real estate.
I'm not even gonna lie, for me, I sold a house and bought a house and sold another house, and I was like, I want some of that. How much they get paid? Okay. I live in Florida now. All right. I think I want to try this. And so that's what it was all about for me.
Your name, right?
We're going around saying how we got into real estate. I was a former city planner and got into real estate because I wanted to build master planned communities in low to moderate income areas, and just didn't want to ask for permission. So I wanted all the information. But in my first 3.5 months, I made 119,000, and a couple months later, 78,000, and it was on from there. But to this day, I do build houses. We do develop communities. But that's kind of like how I got in, just to do investments. So 30 years later, 21 in Texas, I guess.
Levi?
We all got some very similar backgrounds. I never meant to be a real estate agent. My goal was to represent myself as an investor when I bought and sold properties. The reason I wanted to be in real estate, I was one of those kids who would grow up watching the infomercials on TV. Late at night, I was seeing the investors and I was looking at those guys. I was like, man, I want to do that. And the only person that I knew that owned real estate at the time was my grandfather. He owned the house he lived in and like a duplex next door. But anyway, that's why I got into the industry. So I started wholesaling some properties, started buying some homes back where you can get the stated loans. And I bought this property and I wasn't supposed to have it anyway. Like I got the loan. It was 200,000. I was going to flip it for like 4. And 2 weeks after I got that house, no lie, y'all, the market crashed. I was stuck with it. I was stuck with that house, and I'm still living at home with my mom, right? So I ended up going through the foreclosure process that, thank God, turned into the short sale process. So by going through the short sale process, I learned that whole loss mitigation side of the business inside and out. And I started utilizing my real estate license to help people avoid foreclosure. And because at that time, of course, everybody was going through it. So that's how I started to use my real estate license, and we was able to help some people keep their houses. But the ones that couldn't, we was able to help them gracefully exit through the short sale process. So that's how I started using my license.
Just a little follow up on the poll that Rachel mentioned. So we polled, how do you feel about your business in 2024? 94% of you said confident, and 6% said fearful. So we got the beasts on this call. For sure.
Beast mode.
We have one other question in the Q&A. I'm actually writing out an answer, but if the panel wants to just share any tips on creating a business plan, where do you start? What should you do?
You want me to? I'll do that real quick because I coach real estate professionals all the time. And so the first thing I have them do is do a brain dump. Write down all the things that you all your skill sets, like write down all your skills, what you love to do, what you like to do, and then write down write the problems that you're able to solve for people. That's the number one thing. And then create like how much money you want to make, not just, not like what you need to survive on, but like how much do you really, really want to make, and then double that. Because your number should be very uncomfortable and something that's scary. And then everybody else, you guys can take it from there.
I'm actually writing it out. I break it down. It's not as simple as just saying it, but start off with your mindset first. A lot has to do with that value proposition. What is it that you do? What problems you solve? Like, what's your mission? What's your vision? What do you do differently from other agents? Second part is setting goals. Your goals have to be smart. If you don't know what it is, go Google it. Smart goals, because if your goals don't have timelines, if they're not realistic, if they're not relevant, they're just not going to work. Next is marketing. What are you doing to create business? What is your plan for prospecting, getting leads? I go with the 4 pillars of marketing. So what are the 4 things, the areas that I'm going to focus on, and what are the activities I'm going to do under each pillar? And that could be if you're focusing on leasing, what are you doing for leasing? If you're focusing on buyers, what are you focusing to get buyers? Is it open houses, door knocking, whatever those things are? And then the last part, which I think is often overlooked, but what are your systems for tracking and measuring? How are you assessing if what you're doing is working or not working? Because if you say I'm going to do this plan, I'm going to keep doing it, but you don't have a way to see if what you're doing is working, then you're going to end up just quitting and not achieving the results you want. Because sometimes you got to shift and do something different. Those are key parts of it.
Just don't worry the risk.
But for me, if anybody needs a business plan, feel free to email me at support@delisarose.com, and I will give you, one that you can have. Support SUPPORT at Delisa DELISAROSC.com. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's many different business plans. The best business plan to start with is your life plan, because your business plan is ultimately the vehicle to get you to your life, to make the money to fund the life that you're trying to live. So, and a lot of people were working every single day trying to make just the most amount of money that they can make, but not really realizing or understanding, what are you really trying to do? What do you really want in life? So focus on a life plan. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? What's your happy place? Where are you trying to retire? How much are you trying to leave to your kids? How much do you want to have in retirement? So creating that life plan is the best business plan you can have. And then creating the business plan that allows you to create the schedule you need and work just hard enough to fund the life, not overwork and not give up 100 hours a week, of your life trying to make money, but actually trying to be free. And, which means don't think harder than it has to be. Don't work harder than you have to work. Be smart about it. So be smart and don't reinvent it. So I can send you a business plan. It needs to include your marketing, your schedule, your days off, your budget. But here's it. I must leave it at this. But the deepest part too is really focus on where you need to grow and how you need to grow, and what you need to do to grow. The business plan is the simple part. The life plan is a little bit more thought, but where are your weaknesses? Some people have emotional intelligence issues where they don't know how to communicate. They don't like rejection. They don't know how to make the phone calls. They are procrastinators. They got ADHD like me. You know what I mean? And you can't stay focused for too long. Ashamed about weight, don't want to look good or don't want to go out, ashamed about what you wear or how you look when things, many of us, even in color, could be a thing, aren't comfortable coming outside of our network and diversifying, to have bad penmanship, bad writing, and we need to learn how to use Chat GPT. So figure out how to do that inner size so that your business plan works. Because a lot of times, I'm sorry for being long-winded, but you can have the best business plan in the world, but how do you make it work? And none of it's going to work if you just write it and don't apply it. So
or look at it.
And thank you, Rachel, because one thing that I do say, print out when you do your time schedule, your calendar, your daily to-do list, daily calendar, print it out and have it in 3 places. Have it in your office, have it in your car, and carry it around with you so you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Print out your business plan, have it in 3 places. By your bed, in your office, traveling with you. And every day read it. Every day read it. And then find an accountability partner, an accountability group, an accountability coach. And I say accountability, not just a coach that reminds you you're jacking up, but an accountability person who's going to have that confrontation to remind you, stay on your stuff. I don't want to talk about who, what, when, where, why. How do we overcome your issues and make you keep the promises you have to yourself?
Well, I think I was really like this is great. I mean, we kind of got off the whole lawsuit situation, which was kind of intended, because it's not about that. It's about like, what are you going to do moving forward? And I think what it comes down to is like, the issue is no different than what it is all the time. Like, how are you going to produce business? What are you going to do? Maybe looks a little bit different, but that's the important part. So, Melanie, I don't know if you have anything you want to say before getting off, but I do.
There's a couple of Monique Harps, by the way, who's part of our leadership team. Welcome, Monique. And Mario Dove is on here too. Monique mentioned when I talked about the poll about the 6% who said they were fearful. Didn't mean to be dismissive of them. She actually said, how can we help the 6%? Because we know it's a lot more than 6% out there. We see the numbers. There's a lot of our colleagues who are just walking around in a trance right now, just not knowing where to go. maybe some of them need to do something different, but what about the ones that, what can we do, or what words of support or encouragement as we close and it's the end of the year when everybody's thinking about next year and how they, do their business and plan for the year? Like, what would you say is the most important thing for people to not forget about, or just to remember, to stay motivated, stay positive, and block out whatever self-limiting beliefs are obviously creeping in if they're feeling fearful?
So maybe a round robin final thought from the panel. What do you say, Levi?
That can go so many ways. I want to keep it short. But in all honesty, you got to start now. Like, start making your fee higher than 3%. Just take a baby step. Put it in your agreement, put it in your buyer broker agreement that your fee is your fee. And then work on providing so much value to that client that at the end of the day, they understand why you have your fee. One thing I like about what Delisa was saying, and she was, talking about the business plan. It doesn't matter what business plan that we have in place, like the life plan has to be right there along with it, because if the life plan is not right, the business plan won't be right. And whatever your goals are, write those goals down and revisit it every single week, because every single week something will probably get tweaked or changed, or that vision could expand. Because if you revisit whatever your goals, whatever your vision is every single week, then the fact that you took action throughout that week automatically is going to push that goal or that result somewhere. Meaning I got to tweak it, or I need to expand it, or I did this didn't work, let me do that. But my biggest advice is to start now. Don't wait on the change, and get around people that are doing that thing that you want to do, and write those goals down, whatever they are in your life, and revisit them every single week, so that way you continue to push them and expand them, or change or make corrections where they're necessary.
Thank you for that.
Lisa, what you gonna leave us with?
Me? Thank you, guys.
Anything?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say, and you said how to survive this market. That was the topic of the whole thing, right? How to survive post, this post decision that will be appealed. Turn yourself, go from agent to CEO. Know your numbers, your finances, and that life plan. Just leaving out saying, be your own best client, and figure out how you can do real estate, buying properties, whether it's wholesaling, commercial, partnering up, private equity, and really make this thing happen, for your goals.
Thank you.
That's what I.
And was I supposed to finish up? Mine is really quick, like simple, like kudos to everything that all these other guest panelists have said. But I always talk about future-proofing your business. So no matter what, something's going to happen in the future. But if you future-proof your business by all the things that they've already discussed, right, is the best way for you to solve this problem, whether it's NAR, whether it's appealed or not. Because I still think there's going to be some impact. And remember this: the people who are going to lose in this lawsuit are the consumers. And so you got to figure out how to make them win, right? Is how do they win? I think that's the biggest thing that we have to consider. Is it's the consumer who loses. The lawyers are going to win. The brokerages are going to be okay, and Zillow's going to be fine. But how do we help the consumers? If you keep that in mind, I think that will be the most important aspect of this whole thing. Thanks, and thank you all for having us on here.
Thank you, Rachel. Did you have one, or did you go already? I don't know.
I will just say that, one of the things I'm stressing right now, very much in line with Delisa was saying, is like figure out that life plan, but not just like, okay, like defining what it looks like, vision it, not just like, oh, I want to I want to sell X amount of dollars. Don't talk about necessarily your finances, but what that will afford you to be able to do. And put it everywhere, plaster it. You know, vision boards, it's a thing. Going into the new year, create a vision board to start. That will help you guide whatever your plan is.
Absolutely. And I put mine in the chat. It's something I heard this morning, which I'm going to use every day for myself, is be a warrior, not a worrier. Because most of us spend way too much time worrying. I came out the womb worrying. So you just change that mindset and stop thinking of, Miss Rose tells me this a lot. If something is proposed to you, don't think of all the reasons why it can't work. Think of the reasons why it can. And if you just always have that way of thinking, you'll be a lot more productive, and you'll be able to just eliminate a lot of that, negative talk that comes up in your head. So that's all I can say about that. Thank you guys for all joining us. Thanks for pitching in to Lisa and Fee for pinch hitting for Levi. I don't even know if you know what happened earlier. You missed that part.
No,
I
missed it all, but I'm glad that y'all here.
Yeah.
Not the way it was supposed to.
That's right.
Kudos to you, Melanie and Rachel and Fee, and Levi, just for continuing to educate, the realtors, to give up your nights and to just go above and beyond to make sure that, we're all the best that we can be. And for staying on top of it, even though I'm with Levi, like, let's just go back to work. But thank you guys. Thank you for doing this, and the dedication and commitment you have to us. We love you.
All right. Thank you. Rachel, what you got for us next month?
We'll figure it out. No, I think like this just kind of sparks a lot of conversation about that. It's much needed. So probably digging deeper into these topics and like what action items you can take on. So.
Like that man down there said, we work for a company that has all the tools we need. So let's collaborate. Let's continue to network and keep our tribe together strong. Inside this group, outside of this group, what are we, 80 something thousand strong, right? So let's leverage that for what it's worth, because it's now needed more than ever, right? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Rachel, for putting this together. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Fee. That's right. Wakanda forever, baby. Let's go.